David Morgan with you at the Vancouver Resource Investors Conference, January 2018. Larry, have known each other for a while. American Manganese, what a story. I'm just going to let you tell it. Where is it, what's it about, and why are you in manganese?
Okay. We're in manganese, as the name says, because we were trying to develop a big manganese deposit a few years ago. Out of that, we developed a intellectual property that has been patented in the US, China, and South Africa. And that patent allows us to compete competitively with our Chinese, who do most of the metals, with our Chinese competition, and we can get it out for about the same price as they can. The only difference being their grades are 50%, 40 to 50%. Our grades are 2 to 3%. So how do we compete with that? It's all in the technology. And we actually did a feasibility study on that and took it to the market at the very worst possible time. The price of the metal was cratering, and it became unfeasible. So on the shelf it went. The company went on the shelf, and then in 2015, our research lab that did the breakthrough for us, and I have to say this, that there was 80 years of history in that. U.S. Bureau of Mines spent millions of dollars, 60 to 80 years, trying to develop a process to make their low-grade deposits in the United States, especially in Arizona at Tillery Peak, into an economic program that would allow them to have their own source of manganese, and they failed. After 80 years, we took all that data, gave it to Cametco. Cametco said, well, we think we can break this. It took 2 to 3 years, and they did. And then we patented it, and then Cametco phones me up in 2015 and says, hey, Larry, I'm looking at the chemistry. Chemistry's telling us that you should be able to get the recycle and recover the cathode materials. Those cathode materials, depending on the chemistry of the battery, include lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese, and aluminum. So we did the first initial proof of concept, and we got 100% on all the metals except lithium. And then we spent another $1 million or $1.2 million over the next year to do a lot of bench scale work, about 1,000 tests, and now we got fine-tuned to the point where we get 100% recovery of all the cobalt, nickel, manganese, lithium, aluminum out of these batteries. So, that is astounding. And it's not something that just we fell out of bed and said, hey, we're going to recycle batteries. We had a plan, and that plan worked out. So what's that mean for us? Well, we've been talking about it. We're looking at doing a pilot plant here very soon. We got the attention of Bloomberg Financial, and they interviewed me, and they put a big spread on us. So we got international attention.
I saw that.
Also from Thomson Reuters, the same thing. And all the big recycling companies, and if people want to remember this now, recycling companies are recycling these batteries. And I'll get to that a little further along.
Okay.
All the big recycling publications, internationally and nationally, have interviewed me and have published all our stuff on this. This is new technology. I don't know of anybody else that can make the same claim we can. And what that tells me, if the recycling companies are talking to me about our process, that means they're not aware of anybody that's able to do that. Because what happens is that a car manufacturer, EV car manufacturer, or a battery manufacturer decides to gets rid of their spent batteries. What they do is they have a contract with a recycler, and they give that recycler the battery, and the recycler charges them a tipping fee, which is about $3 a pound. 1,000-pound battery, $3,000. And then the recycler deals with it, and the only way that they can really get rid of it without putting it into a landfill is to strip it down to the bare battery cartridges, which are cylindrical, about the size of my thumb, and put them into a furnace. And those furnaces are available from the smelting operations around the world. So they end up in Canada at Sudbury, they end up at smelters in China. Wherever there happens to be smelters, they're going to be burning these batteries. What do they get back? Well, they can get back 40 to 60% of the cobalt, the nickel, the lithium, manganese, the aluminum, all goes out in slag along with 40 to 60% of the cobalt. Goes into slag, there's nothing you can do with that, it's stockpiled. So what do we offer? Well, if we can get 100% of the cathode material back, that means that we can create a system whereby we can get all of these cathode metals back. And those cathode metals can be sold back to a battery manufacturer, or they can be sold on the market. We'd like to sell it back to the automobile manufacturer, but you have to make a profit, David. You can't do great things in the world unless you're making money.
What a unique thought.
Yeah. So we will do what we have to make a profit. But what I want to talk about on our process is a closed loop process where nothing goes into the environment. The water is recycled. There's no waste stream because you're getting 100% of the metals. It's not like you're getting 80 or 70 or 90. Where's the other 10% goes? It goes into a waste stream somewhere, back into the environment. We get 100%. This is the answer to the phrase that the electric vehicle manufacturers like to use, and that's that we're environmentally conscious and we are saving the environment. Well, if you're not dealing with your batteries, you're not saving the environment.
Amen.
But now we can give them the truth in that statement. So that makes it inevitably a product that will be on demand. Not just for that reason. The major reason is metals are running low, especially cobalt. You're reading about cobalt every day. The price is going through the roof. I did a podcast on Friday when it was $77,000 a tonne. Now it's $80,000 a tonne. When we first started looking at the recycling of this, it was around $22,000 to $25,000 a tonne. So that tells you how much it's gone up. And this is just a little over a year. So that cobalt material is valuable. You can't afford to put it back into a wall unit like they're talking about, when you can use something like lithium manganese, which is a much cheaper commodity to put up on a wall.
Sure.
And recycle the cobalt and the nickel and even the lithium out of the old battery. So we think that we have a product that is going to be in huge demand around the world. And as I said earlier, we don't know of anybody that is able to do what we're doing.
Well, let me stop you there for a second, Larry. Is this patented process chemistry only, or is it involve other things? How much can you tell us about the details of how you recover 100%?
Okay, what I can tell you is that the original patent for the manganese is patented in 3 countries. We made a patent application in 2016 for the patenting in the US of the process for recycling lithium-ion batteries. And that was in November. In November of last year, we filed the final patent on that. So we have tied up that process, and it is a process. It's a hydrometallurgical process that is used, which is common in the mining. And this probably also gave us a leg up, is that we have a lot of experience, and Cametco has a lot of experience in mining. And we know what you have ores that are difficult to work metallurgically. And so, the same problems exist, except that we had the key to it in previous work that has a 80, and with us, about a 90-year history in the making. So when I talk about this, it's not something that, Larry Reaugh got up in the morning and woke up and said, wow, I think I'll recycle lithium-ion batteries. It's a nice thought. But the reality is that if you don't have anything to base that on, you're starting from zero. And you've got nothing to compare it with. But we did have something to base that on. So, patentable, hydrometallurgical process, and it's patent protected. We plan on doing another 2 or 3 patents this year, because as you work through the process, you say, oh, maybe I can save on this, and maybe I can do this, maybe I can streamline that, right?
Sure.
Which involves other patents. So that's our next step, is to actually develop those into patents that will be applied for. And at the same time, we'll be building a pilot plant. And that pilot plant will show us that we can do this on a continuous basis. What's a pilot plant tell you? It tells you that you should be able to take your product and do it on a continuous basis. You're doing it on a one step-by-step basis before. Now you can do it continuously, and you can work out any bugs that may develop into the hydrometallurgical plant. After that, we're looking at maybe a 2 to 3 ton a day commercialized plant. And you say, wow, what's that? That's nothing, right? And but the reality is the value is great. Yeah. The value is great, and depending on the chemistries, it can be anywhere between $25 to $100 million worth of product a year from a 3 ton a day operation. Now we expect to be in the somewhere above the low end, and so from our own work, we think this is going to be a very profitable situation. And if we could do $35 million or $40 million a year on a 3 ton a day plant, if we went to a 30 ton a day plant, which is not that big,
scale.
it's what's that? And all of a sudden that becomes $300 to $400 million cash flow a year, and that's a whole business in itself. So, yes, we think there's a real opportunity there to work with the environment, and also to be highly commercial and profitable. So, I think we got all the ingredients covered on that. Now, you asked me the question, is there anything else? Yes. Bloomberg has invited the company down, or myself down, to sit on a panel at their inaugural mobility conference in Silicon Valley. And I will be down there on February the 1st and 2nd, and I'll be on that panel, and I'm hoping that I can get to meet the right people that can help me move the company ahead.
Excellent. Congratulations on that. Let's look a little deeper at the company a little bit, which means you've got enough funds to keep pressing forward. And what's your share structure like?
We have about $40 million market cap. Our share structure is we have 150 million shares outstanding. The market cap has moved from 2 million to 40 million in the last year and a half. And even at this show we're at right now, David, I have a lot of interest in doing a private placement. Mm-hmm. And I am not the type of person that turns money down.
Sure.
Yeah. So I've been there before, and it's a mistake that you don't want to make. So I won't even tell you about the ones I turned down. But the fact of the matter is that I think that we're solvent, mm-hmm. and we have money in the bank. We are discussing potential partnerships, and I think something may happen this year on that. But I'm not going to sit waiting for money from that source when I can keep moving the project ahead.
Sure.
And moving the project ahead is very important to the company. Set up a financial base where it won't need to go to the markets after a while, and also to the shareholders that want to see realize some profits.
We got a real, very strong shareholder base that know the story. You keep them informed weekly with your podcasts, and so it's tightly held from the retail side. Have you noticed any people that are just now getting the story now that you've been on Reuters and Bloomberg and seen any action in the price and stuff?
This story hasn't hit that
Critical.
big audience yet.
Yeah, right.
But everything's contriving to drive them to this story, and that is the tightness of the cobalt stocks, even the tightness of the lithium stocks. Remember, when we take a battery, we can tell by the kilowatt hours and the metal chemistry that's in it, how many pounds of lithium, how many pounds of cobalt, how many pounds of manganese, nickel, aluminum. We can tell that just by pulling out a pen and paper and working it out from the kilowatt hours. We don't have to go and drill it. We don't have to go through 43101's report to come up with a resource, and then pre-feasibility and PIAs and all these things that can move you out to a timeline of, if a fast timeline might be 5 years. I can imagine some of these cobalt explorers on these high grades are probably looking at small mine applications, so they won't be that long. But if you're looking at a full-fledged mine, you're looking at 5 to 9 years before it ever gets commercialized. But we don't have to do all that. It's all there. And we can probably set it up in an industrial park. There'll be permits to get, but they're going to be ordinary manufacturing permits. And so we don't see anything that's really barring the way. And I guess the big thing that bars the way is, where are you going to get the supply? People keep saying that. And there's going to be definitely a lot of spent batteries. I don't think they're going to end up in wall units. There is the available scrap material, which can amount to, 2 to 3 or 4,000 tons of just cobalt a year, and that would certainly be a business in itself. And then we will take the batteries. We will work with a research firm that will come up with a methodology of automating, taking that battery apart, pulling the foils out, the aluminum foil for the cathodes, the copper foil for the anodes, and we will treat those when we won't have to have a disassembly of a battery. So we could be 3 or 4 years into production before we ever need to disassemble a battery.
Very good. Thought came about mandating through the bureaucracy, the government, saying, if you have a battery now, you're going to have to go through this process because it's totally 100% environmentally friendly. I've seen that in one of the states of the union, where even though it was more costly, it was mandated that you had to process it in that manner. Do you see that as possibly being a factor?
Oh, definitely. China has laws in right now where they're making the EV car manufacturer responsible for the disposal, recycling, not disposal, recycling of the batteries. I imagine that will happen in North America, and it's happening in small fits and starts, and the same thing with Europe. And because somebody has to take responsibility for these batteries at the end of the day. And we're there to take delivery. And we get lots of queries out of Europe. There's people that want us to take their cathode materials and treat them. And same thing in the US at this time. We're a little reluctant to deal in China at this time because we're afraid of patent infringement. And I think that's enough said about that, but that can happen. And this thing is alive and it's in play. And I mentioned for several reasons why we would start getting the attention of the people that can supply the material, because they don't have a choice.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Larry, I knew a little bit of the story years ago, and of course it's changed, and I followed it somewhat, but you gave us a great overview of everything that's going on. kudos to you for the persistence that it takes to work through these kind of situations. I mean, going back 90 years as you outlined, I mean, it's not something that, like you said, you get out of bed, clap yourself in the forehead and say, oh yeah, today I'm going to do this.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of persistence. I congratulate you on that.
Thanks,
and wish
David.
you a lot with the
Glad to be on the show.
Thanks.